What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer, joined by Justin Fan. It's Fan Friends Day, not Fan Friday. That's the fan on for one more, maybe the last, two-game slate of the NBA season here. Boston looks to close out Cleveland. If they do, it'll be the last weekday, two-day slate of the regular season. Perhaps we'll get a weekend two-game slate here. With me to talk through the injuries, Justin Fan from Underdog Fantasy, Mike Gallagher from Established Run. Justin, how are you doing?
Doing great. Excited for one of these games tonight, and it's not Cleveland-Boston. So we'll get into that first one. But, yeah, playoffs have been good so far. Have enjoyed them. And the Wolves-Nuggets series, especially Nuggets being down 2-0. That was great basketball last night from Nikola Jokic, one of the best games I've ever seen him play. I think people want to clown on Rudy Gobert, but I don't think any player in the history of the NBA could have prevented Jokic from going to work last night. Just deep in his bag, throwing passes that Bo Nix would be jealous of. Yeah, just vintage Jokic out there last night.
No Rudy Gobert slander from Justin. What about you, Mike? How are you feeling today, and do you have the Rudy Gobert slander ready?
No, man. Like, chill. Everyone just likes to bash players. That's what NBA people do nowadays. Joker played, like, best game. I mean, game one against the Lakers was really good. The Suns game, when they lost, I was at that game when he scored 53. I mean, he's had some great games, and that was just a banger. The fact that he had no turnovers, like, is not going to get talked about enough. And I thought one of the craziest stats was they only had 4 transition points, the Wolves yesterday, for their lowest of the season. Like, not turning the ball over put their Wolves in such a bad spot offensively. Yeah, I think it was probably the best game Joker's ever played. The highlights were just on top of one another. The little ballerina spin move he did, it was just so good. So yeah, really excited. The players stepping up. We talked about bench players last round. SGA two days ago. Joker. I mean, the star players are kind of coming out here in the second round.
Brunson.
SGA, Brunson, yep. Joker, PJ Washington, all the stars are out here in round 2. Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you guys. Consider the stakes, consider the opponent. That's the best, certainly the best quarter of basketball I've ever seen Jokic play. Probably the best game. The next best quarter of basketball I've ever seen him play was a regular season game against the Pelicans. That was like legitimately, I thought it was absolutely perfect basketball. But that was against the Pelicans. It was a regular season game. That wasn't against the best defense in the league. And yeah, Rudy Gobert was just a -2 yesterday in his 40 minutes. So everybody was talking about Anthony Edwards in game 4. He was +5 in his 45 minutes. It looked like one of those Jokic or LeBron stat lines where it's like, can you all just hold it together for 3 minutes while I catch my breath and we can win some games here? And they're like, nope, -13 in the other 3 minutes. Rudy, -13 in the other 8 minutes that he was off the floor yesterday. He was great. He was really good. And there's a negative perception around Rudy around the league for a number of things. I think the stuff that he keeps getting fined for is deserved, and he should continue to, as he insinuates that the league is fixed, be fined aggressively for that behavior. He obviously rubs people the wrong way. Draymond was clowning on him. I just wish TNT would have run some clips of Jokic versus Draymond in the playoff series a few years ago when Jokic's lead guard out there is like Will Barton, Facundo Campazzo, and Austin Rivers, and Jokic is putting up 31, 13, and 6 on Draymond, just backing him down and going left and going right, just like Dre was clowning on Rudy last night. It's like, Dre, you've been in that spot, man. So yeah, I thought the piling on was a little bit aggressive, but
yeah, you mentioned Rudy Gobert, Dink, and the plus-minus differential. One of the biggest differences from games 1 and 2 in the last 3 games has been Naz Reid. I mean, unfortunately, 2 words there. Yeah. He played great the first 2 games, has been really absent the last 3. NAW has had similar struggles the last 3. He played well as a starter last night, but like that has swung the series tremendously, those 2 players and their impact. You know, I was at game 3 and just seeing NAW and Nas, like them getting killed during those minutes, and Justin Holiday's out there raining threes. They're getting contribution. Christian Brown's hitting a massive 3, and they're getting good run from their bench. Reggie Jackson, he's very hot and cold. He had a hot game that night. So that's been a big difference for them, is the performance of Naz Reid, unfortunately. This came on the heels of all this buzz around him in Minnesota. Guys giving tattoos out for $20. Just Tough scene.
Naz Reid, like most of our favorite expletive, it has a lot of versatility to it. You can say Naz Reid and you can be excited, and you can say Naz Reid and you can be terrified and demoralized in the course of a few weeks here. All right, let's get into the games today. Let's start with Cleveland, Boston, where Boston's looking to put things away here, and Cleveland is looking like they are opting for euthanasia here. Everybody is questionable, and it looks like leaning towards out. Ty Jerome is out. Craig Porter Jr. is doubtful. I thought that was interesting. He's been listed out for a while. Donovan Mitchell, questionable, expected not to play. Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, both questionable, seemingly more closer to the side of doubtful here. Justin, what are your notes here on the Cavaliers?
Yeah, we got the Shams report, which backed up the federal reporting from the days preceding that Donovan Mitchell is unlikely to play. I don't think that's a big surprise. Jared Allen, present at shooting around, but didn't participate. Same thing that's happened the last couple of games. I think he's highly unlikely to go. Just don't see a sudden upgrade for him. And then no sign of Karis LeVert at shoot around this morning either. There was a report from Bontemps, but it was confirmed from another reporter that LeVert wasn't there, in fact. So he's been dealing with this knee issue since November. So sounds like Karis LeVert is highly questionable, if not closer to doubtful in this one. So this could be a skeleton crew likely for the Cavs tonight. And let's run through what they look like without Karis LeVert, assuming he doesn't go. Still officially questionable, like we said. So their starting five would be Darius Garland, Max Strus, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, Evan Mobley, and their bench would be Sammy Merrill, Georges Niang, Marcus Morris, and Tristan Thompson. So if you're JB Bickerstaff, I think the blueprint here is pretty simple. And we saw that a lot in game 4. The blueprint is take a lot of threes and hope they go in. They took 48 in game 4, which is the optimal strategy. And you look at the 7 games the Celtics have won so far in the playoffs, their opponent has shot 28% from 3. In the 2 games they've lost, their opponent has shot 51% from 3. So you want to beat the Celtics team, especially if you're a huge dog. You want to increase the variance. You want to shoot a lot of threes. You want to hope they go in, right? So I think that's what we're going to see again from the Cavs tonight. Hope to shoot damn near 50 threes, once again. And in terms of some notes here, Dean Wade, like I said, expect him to start if Karis LeVert doesn't go. He's been on a minutes limit the last 2 games since his return. 17 his first game, 25 his last game. I think if he starts and LeVert's out, I think he's going to be low 30s. He played 15 minutes in the second half of last game. So I think it's pretty, and they need him. His defense, his spacing, really important for the skeleton squad today. So would expect low 30s from him, if he starts. And I think another guy here is going to make a big impact of LeVert out is Sammy Merrill. Mentioned that the Cavs need to be shooting a ton of threes, and who does that, better on this team than Sammy Merrill. So I think he's going to be pretty sneaky. His minutes could really get up there. If you're JB Bickerstaff down 12, down 15, you want to put Sammy Merrill out there instead of going big with, Marcus Morris, Georges Niang, Tristan Thompson, whatever. So they're guard depth right now is Garland, Strus, and Sammy Merrill, assuming LeVert can't go. So I think he's going to play a ton and be pretty sneaky. Don't have a ton outside that. Darius Garland was phenomenal last game. I think he continues to have a big role tonight. And Evan Mobley, I would expect to have to step up even more offensively if LeVert isn't able to go. So the offense should flow through those 2 guys, Garland and Mobley. Dean Wade, I think, is going to have a big role, and Sammy Merrill is going to have a big role as well off the bench.
Yep. I've agreed with everything you said. I'm glad you left me a few nuggets that I still have. Guess what? Narrative boys, get excited. It's Sam Merrill's birthday today. So what better to have than playoff minutes when you're trailing the whole game? You get to bomb threes. I couldn't imagine a better gift to give Sammy Merrill. So there's that. And on top of the stuff you talked about, so the Cavs put out a little video of Max Strus at shoot around right here. The whole time he's just talking about him and Darius Garland running the offense. Not a single mention of Karis LeVert. And this is like the whole video is like 5 to 10 minutes. I'm pretty sure he's not going to play. So there's that. And then I did want to go to the shooting stuff. Just a couple more stats on that. They had 16 unguarded catch and shoot attempts. That's by far their most they've had in the playoffs, but they missed them. They were 0.86 per possession. So as you mentioned, the formula was there. They did all they could, but you're taking away Karis LeVert. You're going to need to see Summer League Strus levels of ball handling in this one. I talk about it all the time. When he was coming up, he was a kind of a lead handler. You get kind of pigeonholed into this off-ball role. And we saw him kind of get hot early, but I think his role is going to be so different than where we were at. So I think Max Strus's on-ball stuff is going to be pretty strong. We saw the 7 assists last game. I think he's going to have additional handling there. And then, everything else I think you kind of laid out there. I could talk about Garland's role, I guess. 20 drives, 9.1 minutes of touch time, 13 potential assists. It was A-plus role. So it's going to be heavy Garland. I expect a ton of Max Strus on ball, probably some point guard minutes and the non-Garland minutes. And that's it. Then you give the ball to Mobley. His paint touches were down a little bit last game. Expect that to come up a little bit more here. And you can make a case that they came down because Donovan. Like, it's a little bit easier to kind of defend Mobley in the paint. You don't have to worry about Donovan. But definitely expecting a lot of usage out of those guys. Flush audio
shifts when you take away, like,
there he is.
Okay, you got me. Am I just lagged?
You're lagged for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Why don't I pop out and pop back in, and you guys can keep? I have notes in a.
Okay.
We'll just pop to Boston and then we can come back. There's not really much to say here, Fan. I'll just throw it to you. Obviously, we kind of know what we're going to get. Pritchard's kind of just run away with the lead minutes, and then Horford was kind of bad. We could talk about that too. But yeah, I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah, Horford, 13 straight missed threes, I believe, hasn't made a 3 in 2 games. Before we kind of dig a little deeper, let's toss it back to Dink to kind of close on Cleveland.
Yeah, the last thing that I wanted to note on the Cleveland side is you were getting into it, how things change without Donovan Mitchell in terms of the coverages and whatnot. You take away Karis LeVert, that's another piece that can break down the defense off the dribble. Asking Garland and Strus to do that entirely by themselves is a lot. And so there's one other player that I actually think sneakily benefits in this whole situation, and that's George Niang, because he's like the only other guy that can dribble a little bit and kind of break down a defense a little bit and pass, because obviously, like, you want to create a bunch of threes, but where most threes are created are by getting pressure into the paint that collapses the defense and then allows ball rotation to get the threes. And so if you only have one guy on the floor that can really reliably challenge the paint in Darius Garland, maybe Strus is a secondary option that can do that. Maybe Mobley can do that with like post-ups and paint touches and different things like that. But you look at the rest of this roster, Dean Wade's not beating anybody off the dribble. Isaac Okoro's not beating anybody off the dribble. Tristan Thompson and Sam Merrill, that's not really, their games either. Tristan Thompson's not challenging the paint. So I think Niang could actually benefit a little bit more here in the second unit compared to somebody like a Marcus Morris. Marcus Morris has more like isolation creation to his own, but Niang obviously isn't a great fit defensively. So it's the one, like, when you get late in the series and you're kind of trying to figure out these cheap pieces, especially for showdown for these 2-game slates that could see an increase here. I wouldn't be surprised if Niang is a guy that ends up playing like 22, 23 tonight, just because they need somebody out there to try to help create the threes for everybody else. Now, obviously, his role has normally been to take those threes, but he is one of the guys that has handling in his past. He was like a lead offensive initiator at Iowa State in college, and coming up with Utah and stuff, he did some of that stuff a little bit. So it's a little bit off the radar. I also mentioned Craig Porter Jr., a little bit of a surprise that he was upgraded to doubtful to me. I don't think he's getting in, but I just wanted to note it, that he's been listed out for so long and then upgraded to doubtful. Maybe for like an extreme blowout situation if he's considered active, but I think even if he's active, I don't think you can count on him playing a bunch just because it's been so long without him. But Justin, what are your thoughts on Craig Porter Jr.?
Yeah, I will note, I was going to note this up top, but because Gallagher pulled up the Cavs feed. So they had that happy birthday video that they're all singing happy birthday to Sammy Merrill, and Craig Porter Jr. was there for what it's worth. So I don't know. It's a little thin, but I just want to note that because Dink just mentioned him. So just want to put that out there.
Yeah, you can't play him in any circumstance, showdown, whatever. You can't play him because he's not going to start. Maybe they say he's active, but even then, you don't know if he's actually going to be active and play. Yeah. It might just be like a meet the minimum number of players requirement. But it would potentially, throw another body into the mix in terms of when you're thinking about the downside of things. Again, just to be clear, I think it's exceptionally unlikely that I think the most likely scenario is Craig Porter Jr. is ruled out later on in the day. I think it's exceptionally unlikely we get any funny business here. I just wanted to note that the change from out to doubtful caught my eye on the injury report. Mike, any other thoughts there on Yang or Porter Jr.?
No, yeah, to your point, I could see Tristan Thompson getting cut down just because you need the spacing, and you really just run it pretty tight. So yeah, I'm with you there. And just to back up what Fan said, I was surprised Wade got up to that many minutes with the minutes limit. So if he kind of gets bumped up again, hey, it's your last game, let him go. He's he could hashtag let him know. We're not going to get that tweet from Donovan. Maybe Dean Wade will after that 20-point fourth he had for the best moment of his life. But we'll definitely talk more about it later. But I think Dean Wade
actually would have wanted to see this series with Donnie fully healthy and Dean Wade in there instead of Georges Niang, because I think Dean Wade makes such an impact on the Cavs just defensively, and Niang was just getting killed. Like he was. They were consistently worse with him on the floor. Not a great matchup, in this spot. So would have liked to see what they could have done with the full deck.
Yep. Celtics side, you guys were starting to get into it, but no Kristaps. I'll let you pick up wherever you guys left off on Boston.
Yeah, we didn't get too deep into it at all. I think the one thing for me that's noteworthy is kind of the flip-flop in Derek White and Drew Holiday in terms of their production. And, some of that has to do with the adjustment on the Cavs defensive side. But I do think that this is a good kind of Derek White buy low spot in comparison to Drew Holiday. Derek White cratered to 10% usage last game. He was at 21% in the first 3 games of the series. And he's like a Drew Holiday. His role's been pretty consistent. He's like a mid-teens usage guy. So you look at this Drew Holiday last 2 games, like this quote unquote, like kind of breakout, whatever for him. He shot 13 for 21 from the field, 7 for 12 from 3. So, I think this kind of perceived gap, if there is one out there between people buying Drew Holiday's 2-game blip and Derek White cratering, might be a bit too exaggerated for me. And I think, Derek White bounce back spot at home, even with the catch and shoot stuff being shut down a little bit on the Cavs side, I think he can bounce back in this one and have a good game, get back into like the 30s in terms of FanDuel points, maybe touch 40s. I like his ceiling a little better.
Yeah, to your point, the last 3 combined, 27 points, 3 before that, 29 per. So completely shut down. To your point, spot up shooting way down, had 0 spot up plays in game 4 for the first time in the postseason, which is a testament. And if you've been watching Jason Tatum, I've been talking about this, especially the last 2 games, they changed their coverages really hard. They've run almost like an Indiana style of defense where they're really kind of closing out on shooters, keeping that 3-point volume down. The catch and shoot stuff was way up for the Cavs and way down for the Celtics, some of their lowest catch and shoot output in a long time for them, which is Jason Tatum's music. Why is Jason Tatum gone off? That's a big reason why, on top of the usage. So the shift in defense, I think, hurts White a little bit more than it hurts the other guys. So it's not just like, hey, variance small. They're trying to take that stuff away. So I'm not like all the way in buying low, but certainly expect him to be better than this 27 points over 3 game stretch. So with you there, Jaylen Brown also benefits from this style of defense. Al Horford is a disaster. He's 13 straight. He missed a few, and he missed the last 2 games. He hasn't any. Then the second half he missed them. So 13 straight he's missed overall. And then Drew, man, the handling stuff's been a little bit better. Don't have much to say. And then I thought I don't know if Horford's getting tired or what, but. Like the plus minus is pretty irrelevant to me. Like he's plus 11. I thought Luke Cornett outplayed him like significantly in this game. So I'm curious to see if those minutes kind of get evened up. And then Hauser's just kind of getting really limited here as Pritchard just fills in the gaps for these guys. And then one more point would be don't do this, Boston. Like don't screw around. Just get this game over with. This is such a okay, Boston, you're going to really play with your food here and take this game down to the final 3 minutes and then win by like 6 or 7.
They're not a super team, Mike. What do you expect from them? It's really hard. They're not a super team. They're not that good. They don't have MVPs. They don't have coach of the year. So it's really hard for them. We should just be thankful that we get to see them win these close games against teams without all their players.
Hey, pouring out for everybody who had 8.5 last game.
Oh God! Don't too soon.
What a way to end your season, Karis. Potentially, just like soul crushing us with a 15-foot contested 2 with 2 seconds left. Like, come on, man, kick that out. Have nobody get a shot off. brutal. On the Boston thing, I thought the conversation that you both were having on Drew Holiday, Derek White, the roles, really interesting. Justin, I did the same thing that you did when I looked, because we've been a little bit like Drew Holiday, like this whole series. And so I was going through the rates and the projections today. And I was like, okay, I got to bump these rates from where we've been at. And then I looked through and I was like,
no,
I guess I don't. I don't. What's really happening here is the guy has an effective field goal percentage of 85 and 80 and 73% the last 2 games. And that's really what's happened. But to Mike's point, we talked about JB Bickerstaff understanding that they are an underdog. What do they try to do when you're an underdog? You ramp up your threes. You try to take away the other team's threes, right? And you understand that if we take away their threes, and we know that Boston has this annoying habit of not taking the ball to the rack when they need to, when they're faced with these defenses, maybe you can get them into one of these kind of lazier games that they're playing that looks like a pickup game a little bit more. And I think that worked really, really well. So I'm sure that'll be the strategy again tonight. Mike's note on the defensive changes being more of like an Indiana type system where you're just trying to force stuff at the rim as opposed to give up stuff at the 3-point line makes a lot of sense for why Derek White's production and opportunities have dipped, as well as Al Horford. I do expect Derek White to rebound in terms of his shooting. The one shot he made in this one was actually a pretty big one in terms of stemming a run late in the fourth quarter. But yeah, Drew Holiday, I just want to note, like, a lot of his production of late has been a combination of extra steals and blocks, which he wasn't getting early, which is a totally normal Drew Holiday thing to do. And then just a lot of efficient shooting, which has really, really been the thing that's helped take off his fantasy value.
One final observation I'll have is that, damn, do they really miss Kristaps Porzingis? And they're not going to really pay for it until the finals, assuming they play the Nuggets. But, man, I mean, you can see them. I mean, JB's pretty much targeting Al on both ends of the floor. He's letting him shoot all these wide open. And then they're trying to force these switches and going right at Horford on the other end of the floor too. So, man, Kristaps, they need him desperately, for obviously their title hope. So, yeah, that's just one thing I've observed the last couple of games.
Should add that since this is an injury analysis show and we're talking very little about injuries on this show, Kristaps is progressing and doing some jumping now. So he's if you made me pick a game, I think I'd pick game 3 of the next series when he'd be in. Just to throw that out there.
Nice. And then the other note I'd have on Horford before we go to the late game here is just kind of a mix in terms of what, like, if Cleveland's going to play smaller in general, that opens up the path for Horford to be pulled out and limited a little bit more if they play like Tatum at the 5 and different things that they're pretty comfortable doing. But if Karis LeVert is out and Donovan Mitchell is out, the people that have been attacking Al Horford, like Garland, is not a person that's going to, because the way that you're to attack Horford is basically to drive aggressively into the body and then fade away, or drive aggressively, stop on a dime, and kind of elevate. That's not Garland's game. Garland is like, he's more like try to drive and bounce off you and different stuff like that. And Horford's got length that I think would be fine against that. So a little bit of a push and pull in terms of how the matchup is for Horford tonight without Karis LeVert. Might make them smaller, might put his minutes at risk, but also might make it so that there's less people to attack him, which might keep his minutes kind of in check. It's weird to say people attacking Al Horford because he's been one of the best playoff defenders in the league for the last decade, but that's where we're at. Okay, let's go to Dallas and OKC. OKC side, nothing to talk about on the injury front. They have nothing listed at all. Dallas side, they're still without Maxi Kleber, Omax Prosper, and then Luka Doncic is listed probable with right ankle sprain and left ankle soreness. That is a lot. Luka's performance has clearly been impacted this series, combination of his health, combination of Lou Dort and the defensive scheme here by Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City has been extremely stubborn with a lot of the things that, and I mean, to their credit, they're the number 1 seed this year. They're 2-2. They have they have home court advantage here in the series. They've been very stubborn with Josh Giddey. They've been very stubborn at allowing these corner threes to PJ Washington. I'm wondering if any of these things change more aggressively here. Mike, you are our OKC Thunder correspondent. You've been on the beat now for 8 years of Oklahoma City Thunder basketball. So what are your expectations tonight from Dagnall in terms of his rotation dealing with Luka Doncic and the Mavericks?
Yeah, so we thought it was going to be Aaron Wiggins. It turns out it was Cason Wallace who really benefited in the last game, and we saw Isaiah Joe start in the second half. I think that was because of the score, because they were down. So I don't think Joe would start. I kind of think it would be Cason. I think they kind of like having Aaron Wiggins as like Dort's backup just in case, picks up a couple fouls. So I think Cason, who played great, we'll talk about Kyrie in a second, but That's kind of my lean. They might just roll Giddey again one more time and just like, hey, we got the win. Hey, it was +6. But, I mean, come on. What are we doing here? It's making – Dallas's defense is really good. Mark Daigneault talked about that ad nauseum. Their defense was really, really, really good. SGA needed an A-plus game, really A-plus fourth to win this one. But they defended about as well as they could. We can talk about SGA in a second. We'll just kind of stick to personnel here. So I still, if made me pick, I think I would still pick Giddey, but it's close, man. I think they might go to Cason Wallace. It could be Wiggins. It could be Joe. Don't really have a strong take. Mark Daigneault is known for some curveballs, but I'm curious how you would handicap it, fan, on this starting spot for Giddey, because it's just not. It went better, but clearly it's not going well.
So starter jerseys watch from shoot around. Aaron Wiggins was wearing the starter's jersey at shoot around this morning. So we moved Wiggins into our projected starting lineup, expecting him to get the start over Giddey. Coming out, I was thinking it'd be Cason Wallace, because Cason Wallace played so well on the stretch, was hitting some big threes. He deserves to play more. Was thinking him, but we have Wiggins in there for now. It sounds like he'll get the lean. Still expecting Wallace to play a good amount off the bench. And yeah, I mean, Giddey's been kind of picked on as the scapegoat, but he wasn't near the problem for them in last game. They had like 10 problems and he didn't even crack the top 5. So in terms of, let's run into SGA. So SGA ran, like Mike said, ran super hot in game 4. The Mavs were forcing him into the shots and the looks that they wanted. He was taking a ton of mid-range stuff. In games 1 through 3, he shot 41% on mid-range. In game 4, he shot 10 for 14 from mid-range. So this is a spot for SGA where you kind of look at that line and I'm not buying it. The games 1 to 3 are way more representative for me in terms of what he actually shoots, low 40s and for mid-range rather than 10 for 14. So a ton of credit overall to this Mavs defense. They've been phenomenal, not giving up anything at the rim in transition, forcing SGA into these tough mid-range shots. He hit one damn near behind the backboard, in the fourth quarter last game. Those are tough looks for SGA. So kudos to him. I mean, if you have one of those players like SGA, Jokic, that are going, they're going to hit their shots no matter what. So no matter what your defense looks like. So yeah, I think not really buying the 14 for 27. Like I said, I'm expecting a bit of regression there. J-Dub, he looked terrible for the first 3 quarters of this game, really struggled to get things going, but then came alive in the fourth, made some plays, was attacking the rim. I think he gets it going here in game 5, bounces back. He'd be my, number 2 option with Chet as my number 3 on OKC.
Yeah, pretty clear to me that would be the order. Should note too, Kyrie was on him a ton. J-Dub, like they were guarding, and they put Cason on him more. But Kyrie's done a really good job defensively overall. So, but yeah, they got it. It's very odd. So much corner standing not involved. I talked about it. Like when J-Dub's on, their offense just hums, man. So I think that's a piece of important thing they've got to kind of get to here. So with you there, and then Chet talked about how cold he was as a jump shooter going into this game. And we did this preview for this stuff, and he found the jumpers in the last game generally pretty good, actually on fire, almost 1.8 per possession on his jumpers that were about average. And then should note too, the matchups could change a little bit if they are not going to start Giddey. I think they're still probably going to put their center on Wiggins, and like Dink and I were saying, like you're not really gaining anything by putting Aaron Wiggins on offense, but you're gaining a lot on defense. So Wiggins would probably guard Kyrie, and I think they would put J-Dub on PJ Washington. That's what they did down the stretch, and PJ was a ghost in the fourth. I thought that was a really big adjustment to kind of keep PJ. I was a little bit surprised they let him cook early overall. So, yeah, I think that mostly covers it. So we know probably the starters there. Cason, how many minutes for Giddey then off the bench? The non-SGAs, maybe probably 13, 14? Where do you think you come down on Giddey minutes?
I mean, dude, yeah, Giddey might just be like backup point. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how low you can go. It probably needs to be single digits though. No, because I think Cason's going to play a good amount. I think there can be. I've been kind of going back and forth. Assuming Wiggins starts this one, where would you put Giddey's minutes?
Probably like 12. I don't think you can completely nuke him.
Yeah.
I think 10 to 12 is where I'd be thinking. Yeah. I think there is a risk. The other thing that I would just note is with Giddey is like there's been a number of times this series that part of what Oklahoma City has struggled with offensively is things get really static in terms of just kind of ISO for Shea and the ball's not moving at all. And one thing Josh Giddey does do is move the ball. And so like I think there's some risk of them getting, especially if Dallas starts sending help, which like Luke has been begging for in the press conferences. There's some risk of Oklahoma City's offense just getting really stagnant and Dagnall being like, we need Giddey to be out there to just move the ball because nobody's moving the ball on offense. So I think the min threshold for him is the non-SGAs, which is like 4 to 6. Right. So I think that's like the absolute floor. And then I think there's always going to be a ceiling of like 17, 18, 20, just if you get the right night for Giddey. Because we've seen these nights from Giddey where like he's actually confidently knocking down threes and stuff. And if he's able to do that, he's totally fine out there. And then it's the ceiling gets wide. So I think you still got to anchor to what the floor is, but understand that like the range of outcomes still high. So I'd probably be in the 10 to 12 range if he's not starting.
I think that's right, because the bull case is that I think he'll play better in that second unit, and that might just earn him more minutes. Just overall, right? So, I think 10 to 12 makes sense. Like you said, I could see like 6, but I can see like mid-teens. As well.
Exactly.
So the balance of the two.
Yeah. Then one thing that kind of hurt him a little bit was Kenrich Williams played. And I thought Kenrich Williams had a pretty big impact. Mark Dagnall called him a, quote, brawler after the game. We saw him kind of get into it a little bit. And I thought those minutes went great. And then, not surprisingly, Gordon Hayward didn't play. Gordon Hayward retiring or what? Like, I feel like he just does, like, he's not shooting anymore when he plays. I feel like he has like 8 kids. I feel like he should just like go do that.
I have not checked in on his wife's socials recently, but usually she indicates what kind of injury he's dealing with that nobody knows about. So maybe that's the case with Gordon Hayward. He has not looked right since he came back from.
They're going 10 deep, and he's not part of the rotation. Like tough scene, and he shouldn't be. I mean,
no chance.
Yeah.
All
right, Dallas side of things. I don't think there's much to talk through from a rotation standpoint. It's more just like. One thing I will note, Jamal Murray and Jalen Brunson, 2 players that I thought looked really, really hampered. And then a few games later, randomly looked really good. Like Jalen and I, in both games, within the first 3 minutes in our Slack, I'm like, Jamal looks really good. I'm like, Brunson looked a lot better than anybody else. Like he looked a lot crisper to me last night. So I don't know if that's going to happen for Luka. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen for Luka. But I didn't think it was going to happen for Brunson or for Jamal Murray. And I've gotten my brain has been a little bit warped on this. Like the sports performance and training and like injury management teams are so good around the league to be able to get these guys to play through these things. 2 ankle issues, a right ankle sprain and left ankle soreness feels really bad. But I like buried all and I buried Jalen in these last 2 series, and they've come back at some points without extra rest. In Jalen's case, I thought it was like the same amount of rest and looked great. So is there any reason for optimism around Luka finding the high level performances we've seen from him and became so reliably dependent on him during the regular season, Justin?
Luka feels more like Jamal than Jalen to me personally. And Jamal had a crazy amount of rest between series or between games.
3 days.
Which helped a lot for him. Also didn't get suspended, so run better Nuggets there with the scheduling and the non-suspension. But I am kind of skeptical because you kind of look at the eye test and then his post-game comments, and it's hard to get too excited. I think one thing that we have to talk about here is what the hell is going on with Kyrie Irving. The guy is 4th in usage rate this series among Mavericks players. He's behind PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. And look, I have a lot of respect for the defense of J-Dub and Cason Wallace, but you need to get him the freaking ball and alleviate some of this burden, the workload off Luka's shoulders. I think that would help a lot too, honestly, if Luka doesn't have to initiate as much as he has been. So that's what I kind of want to get into too, is Kyrie's role, what we kind of expect there, how big a turnaround are we expecting, how soon it's going to come. Didn't get too much from Jason Kidd. He was like, I'm not going to force Kyrie to take shots. But any person watching this is like, dude, he needs to be doing way more than he has been. And he's been kind of a ghost for extended stretches of the series. So I'll kick it to you, Mike, on.
I got to get this off before we go to Mike, but the government wasn't going to force Kyrie Irving to take shots. Jason Kidd's not going to get Kyrie Irving to take shots, man. Come on.
Well done.
Well played.
Well done. Yep. 16.9 usage rate makes no sense to me. Give him the ball early. He only had 2 pick and roll handover possessions in Game 4. I mean, how is that even possible? It just makes no sense. Let him bring the ball up, take some pressure off Luka. It's not that hard. To fans' point, he said there's no pressure to get Kyrie the ball. Maybe there's now. Now that you kind of lost your home court advantage. So I think that makes a bunch of sense. Just for Jamal, just really quick. I thought like his game wasn't good, but I thought he had the pop to his game. Didn't have a good stat line, but I thought his performance was pretty good. Just to add that really quick. So Luka, right, on top of just being listed, he scored 3 points on drives. Luka Doncic, 3. He's like almost, if you like do last game, if you pull and you sort it, he's like almost off the first page of like 50 people. So credit to Dort, but he's not healthy, man. You see all the time he's grimacing. He's not getting downhill at all. I think I'm more concerned with him. And then to your point about Brunson had an in-game injury a couple games ago too. So like, and then, Jamal talked about tightness. Luka keeps getting hurt. Like he is going down every game. He pulls something new. He's not fresh here. So I got pretty big concerns. As we always say, like yada, yada, yada. He could just go off. It's freaking Luka Doncic, like we've been saying all year. And he's not like his usage is down. He's not running isolation as much anymore. His pick and roll stuff's also down. He's not getting any off ball stuff either. Like get that going. Let him. He has 0 unguarded catch and shoot attempts all series. Get the ball on Kyrie. We know Luka can kind of nail those shots when he's on. So I think that makes sense to kind of like almost flip their roles, right? Like make Kyrie the heavy ball dominant, more driver player, and just go that way. Like literally just if you play Madden, like flip it, just flip the play and just like make Kyrie the lead ball handler and put Luka off a little bit more.
Yeah, and my other note here on the Kyrie usage thing, and this is part joke, part like legitimate question, is, I mean, Kyrie's really working hard defensively. This is as hard as I've seen Kyrie work defensively since maybe the NBA Finals back in the Cleveland days, like in terms of like how much effort he's putting out defensively, and that takes a toll. And maybe that toll is he can't carry the usage in the same way that we're accustomed to during the regular season when he's not playing with that level of intensity on the defensive end. And so it's almost like there's only so much energy a player can expend in a game. And now he's devoting a lot onto this end and doing a really good job against Jalen Williams. Maybe that's the thing that's impacting his usage on the offensive end. And I don't know how to solve that riddle. Yeah. So I don't know if that's the case. I mean, Kyrie is a guy who has incredible amounts of energy, being able to play through fasting and whatnot, and like and play really effectively. So I don't know if that's the case or not, but I just wanted to throw it out there while we're giving him a lot of credit for the defensive effort he's put in. When you're questioning, well, where's the offensive production? That might be part of the reason.
No, I think that's a fair point. I think that's a fair point because like Kidd isn't really running a ton of stuff for him either. So if he's a little fatigued, he's just not going to fall on some possessions, But there is a middle ground between taking a little bit off your usage and then shooting shots in Derrick Jones Jr. Right. So there needs to be a bit of a balance there, and we're kind of at more the extreme on the other end, which I'm a little confounded about. If it was a modest drop, then sure, but it shouldn't kind of change it this much. It's a factor, not the entire driving force. So yeah, it's a weird situation for me that I expect to get resolved this game.
Yeah, a couple things. When you talking about Kyrie playing defense, who that reminded me of? Anthony Edwards yesterday. I thought he used way too much energy on defense. He was all over Murray for like so much of that game early. I think it kind of wore him down. So I'm curious to see if that and then like the whole Conley thing, we'll save that for tomorrow. But then 2 other notes I wanted to hit. Man, kid likes to go to Tim Hardaway Jr. I thought that was a mistake. Why did he pull Derrick Jones Jr. out?
Yeah. Why did he close over Derrick Jones Jr.? That's insane.
I don't know. That was really bad. Like, I don't play, what the hell were you thinking coach stuff very often, but that was up there for like one of the most puzzling coaching decisions there. And then the centers held up. Now they kind of held up the minutes. Derek Lively keeps getting a ton of paint touches. He's been great. They didn't do the Hackett Lively thing either. Gafford's was fine. So yeah, those guys holding up quite well is important. And then kind of just a stat that's crazy. The rim defense has been freaking insane. The Mavs have been below 47% at the rim in 3 of the last 4 games. That's insane. So credit to Chet, credit to the bigs. OKC had horrible rim offense as well. And they kind of shot early too. Like, this game looked like they were going to barely score 80. They had 43 in the first half. And then really just like, look at the scores here, 20, 23, 22, and then 35 SGA takeover. So yeah, a lot of momentum kind of going the Thunder's way. They need Luka to be healthy here. We didn't talk about PJ actually. Let's hit him as well.
We kind of talked about him real quick on the last side with the OKC with the defensive adjustments. Maybe J-Dub moving over to PJ and PJ kind of ghosting towards the end. Do we think that is a concern for PJ, assuming Wiggins gets the start here?
Yeah, I think it would get worse for sure. But I think that they're going to kind of stick to what works. And if maybe don't give him like the completely wide open stuff, but don't let him get mismatched on like easy kind of cutting stuff. Like, just pay attention to him more. I think that's probably where they're at. And as we mentioned, he got in that little argument late, and I think that kind of like took him out of his rhythm too. So a little bit tied to that. But yeah, I think he's gonna kind of come down. He's led the team in scoring in the last 2 games, and he tied with Luka 3 games ago. It's pretty nuts that's where we're at here. I think they got to kind of cool him off a little bit here, because if they would have lost that one, it would have been again, that would have been 3 games where PJ Washington like burned you, and you're gonna be sent home because of PJ Washington. So I think they got to give him a little bit more respect here, and I think making that lineup change, like we were kind of hinting at, you're not starting. You're not pulling out Josh Giddey for offense. You're pulling out Josh Giddey basically for PJ Washington, in my opinion. Like, you're not really changing your other matchups too much. So I think it makes sense.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm expecting the offensive shift to come for a little bit of PJ's usage to come towards Kyrie. This game. To piggyback a couple of things, what you just said. So we got the center split, 23 for Gafford, 25 for Derek Lively, the second. Gafford, when you look at round 2, he's 5th among all players in per 36 value. He's averaging 18 and 12 with 4 blocks per 36. So his ceiling is crazy if he can get up to like 26 to 28 minutes. Credit to Derek Lively, who's been playing really well, earned those minutes. But Gafford just per minute has been crazy. So, and we talked about Tim Hardaway Jr. I think he's going to get cut down a little bit. It was Jason Kidd after he got that extension, just wild, and with some of these coaching. So I don't understand that. THJ has been a guy Mavs fans have been begging to play as little as possible to this point, given how bad he's been. And then you're starting closing games with him over Derrick Jones Jr., which is crazy. So
I do not get that at all.
And Hardaway's still minus 10 and 23, which is about right.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that when I transitioned to this game kind of opened with, like, Dagnall has been really stubborn with approaches and strategy here in the face of PJ Washington kind of lighting it up from 3, Derrick Jones Jr. playing effectively at times, Josh Green making shots from 3. And he's at 2-2, and those guys have all largely shot pretty well. Mm-hmm. And so now he's got these small tweaks at his disposal in terms of personnel that he can make things tougher, in terms of like have more length on J-Dub closing out to PJ Washington, more size that PJ can't just like back down somebody in the post when he gets a smaller defender on. And it's like, okay, we can kind of shut that water off without changing the defensive strategy. And if that's the case, then that opens up more responsibility potentially for Luka and Kyrie to beat their tough individual one-on-one matchups. And we'll see if they're able to do that. But this is where I think what happened is, for Jason Kidd's perspective, is they could not score in the third quarter. And if you're playing where you feel like you cannot score, and PJ Washington has been covered up. That Derrick Jones Jr. spot, he wants to feel more confident in the shooter that he has out there in it. The only option that he has really is Tim Hardaway Jr. So I think he played that option to help the scoring. The problem is the other end of the court. And this is the problem with this Dallas roster is it's a little bit too much of, spare bullpen, left-handed specialist, relief ground ball specialist reliever, that if they could take timeouts and switch positions and play offense, defense, this would be a really, really tough team. But there's too many guys that they can't have ideally as two-way players. And so I think they're just like one truly good two-way player away from like being really, really good. And that's kind of where they're a little bit stuck right now. And this is where you start to see this happen late in series where chess pieces just kind of get taken off the board. And we talked about this with Naz Reid with Minnesota, where he's just been kind of taken off the board the last few games. And then Minnesota plays without Mike Conley last night. It's like, man, they're all of a sudden they're thin. And everybody on Twitter is losing their minds over the Kyle Anderson minutes. And I'm sure Chris Finch is just like, well, what do you want me to do? Like I can turn to Jordan McLaughlin. Like Naz Reid's not working. We don't have Mike Conley. Kyle Anderson's not working. I'm running out of pieces. And I think some of that is where Jason Kidd is at with, if they take away PJ Washington and now I've got to rely on Derrick Jones to be a scorer, like I'm in trouble there. And yes, I know I'm in trouble on the other end if I put Tim Hardaway Jr. in, but I'm just in trouble. So like, I'm going to try some stuff. And I think that's what happens kind of late in these playoff series. And, we've talked about how I don't think Dallas is the team to really test OKC's lack of depth and pieces, because OKC has the same problem Dallas has, but their guys are a little bit more two-way. Yeah. They're just not as great on one end, right? They're not as great offensively or as great defensively as these individual pieces. But Dallas doesn't have the depth of pieces to attack and exploit them on either end. And so I think that's going to happen if OKC is able to advance, or if Dallas, whoever advances here, I think those back end pieces are going to get exploited more in the next series than they've been in this series because of the lack of kind of comprehensive depth to the offensive systems of these two offenses that are very heliocentric with Luka and SGA.
To close us out here, let's get some series projections for Mavs Thunder. What do we think?
Thunder in 6.
Yeah, I'm going to take Thunder in 6. I think they just run this out, man. I think they're just a better team. I don't have any faith in Luka. So I feel like it's probably OKC in 7, but I'll officially say OKC in 6.
Okay, I'll go Thunder in 7. This is a game that Dallas should have won. It's the getaway car in OKC. I think Luka just has to look better. Kyrie has to be more involved. I think there's a little bit more room for improvement, I think, on the Mavs end of things than on the OKC side of things. And for me, in my book, Dallas should have won this game. It can't hit a free throw in their life. Just so many things went wrong.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
I'll go Thunder in 7. But, what a crazy series. Yeah,
this is going to be fun. So just one more point. Like, when they pulled out Derrick Jones Jr., they were up 2. And, look at the score. It's 196. Like, the identity, don't cheat the game, man. Like, you're playing a defensive, grinded-out game. Don't just keep playing it. Like, you got 2 superstars. You don't need to trade any more offense. Let Luka and Kyrie especially, do his thing. One of the best playoff performers down the stretch. So, I don't know. Beating a dead horse here, but
you just got to stick with your identity. It's crazy because we always thought of Dallas as an offensive-minded team because they've always been kind of mid to weak on the defensive end. Now their defenses are calling card, right? So just lean into it a little bit. And THJ is nowhere near good enough of a player to start compromising, that identity, So a little bit interesting, but I think Dink provided some good nuance on the spot that Kid is in. So want to acknowledge that as well. Not the easiest of solutions calls.
Almost went an hour today. Look at us.
I was just gonna say 2-game slate, almost an hour. It is not a bit. Not a bit. Want to thank Justin Fan for joining us today for Fan Friends Day. We did have a question in the chat from Hunter saying, hey, who do I follow to hear about if players are a shoot around? And Justin Fan, I think you've got a solution for young Hunter. Where can people find you and the good folks at Underdog Fantasy?
Yeah, you can follow us at Underdog NBA. I will provide some nuance to this because I will say the shoot around reporting has been very, very shaky, especially over the last week. with the Cavs especially. We're getting reports that like Jared Allen, Donovan Mitchell aren't at shoot around. Like 5 minutes later, they just got here, right? So we've had to adjust our reporting as well to start waiting on these initial reports to make sure that they're right, because we got on Jared Allen the other day. Bontemps tweeted out that he wasn't there. Then like 2 minutes later, quote tweeted himself, "Oh, he's actually here." So we're trying our best to give you guys the most accurate information we can, given what we're given. So follow us on Underdog NBA. We're updating the blog post that's pinned with the projected lineups, all the news. You'll see Aaron Wiggins is in our projected lineup now for the OKC Thunder. So can kind of refresh that throughout the day for the latest changes, information, whatever. We're MLB's in full swing. The account's doing great things over there. Soccer, golf. We got PGA Championship coming up. So a lot of things going on over at Underdog News altogether.
Yeah, I'll add to your point though. I like the national people being thrown into the mix. I think is kind of like throwing off the cadence of the reporting on the shoot around. That's kind of like a wrench into this. So I feel like the group, the local beats, they're kind of on the same page on when they kind of know where things are at. So the national people just not knowing the flow of practices is kind of made it is pretty confusing as you've outlined.
For sure. All right, that will do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. As always, if you'd like to support us, the best way to do so is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are just like 40 subscribers shy of our goal of getting to 5,000 by the end of the NBA season. So 40 of you out there, if you have not subscribed, you've been enjoying our content, please consider subscribing. At least hang on through the end of the NBA season. Let us please the corporate overlords that are Taylor Cabey and Adam Leviton and get our gravitas from them. So smash that subscribe button. Join us here. If you're interested in supporting our partners, check out Underdog Fantasy, pick'em games, best ball games, all sorts of stuff at your disposal. Daily snake drafts for big prize pools to play these 2-game slates as well. Anything that you're looking for from an action perspective, Justin covered you on the news side of things, but UnderdogFantasy.com has all of those options as well. Love playing the best ball stuff, love sweating the best ball stuff, and best ball summer is already started in big fashion with a bunch of contests over at Underdog Fantasy. So make sure to get in on there on the football side of things. If you're interested in any of our premium content for the NBA side of things on Established Run, you can go to establishedrun.com/subscribe-NBA for more details on our premium product offerings. Myself and Mike Gallagher will be behind the paywall at 5 o'clock today, breaking this 2-game slate down from a DFS perspective, talking the good chalk, the bad chalk, the contrarian plays, and of course the flag plants there. So join us behind the paywall at 5 o'clock Eastern tonight. You can also find information on our props product offering there. And if you're interested in taking advantage of Best Ball Summer on Underdog, you can check out some of our premium content on the NFL side, where we've got a Best Ball draft kit available for you for just Best Ball season, covering all of those great tournaments on Underdog Fantasy, as well as other tournaments around the industry. So you can check out any of our paywalled stuff over at establishedrun.com. And if you want to keep this content free in advance of next season, the best way to do so is to smash that like button and feed that algorithm. You smash the like button, it feeds the algorithm, that feeds our families, and allows us to feed you the NBA injury information analysis each and every weekday to help you set your lineups and make your spread bets and your prop bets. So smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, feed those algorithms. Nom, 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 nom. We'll see you tomorrow.